Greetings. I hope you're doing well. I myself am not doing too bad today, except for the fact that I have a little bit of a cold, so please bear with me. But listen, I want to start by saying this. First of all, I need you to understand that during the course of this video, I think I'm probably going to be all over the place. This means that I'm going to be going in and out of subjects in a pretty disorganized fashion. And the reason being is that I did not write any script, although I do have a few notes to kind of keep track of some of the things that I know that I need to say. But if you expect a very structured and organized video, you're probably going to be disappointed because this is not that. Everything that I'm about to say is going to come straight from the heart. Things that pop up, in my head in those very moments. So yeah, I just need to tell you that so you know what to expect. Obviously, as you can see, I'm going to be talking about Tupac Shakur. But what this means for this video is that he's going to be at the center of everything that I'm going to be talking about. Tupac is not all that I'm going to be talking about, but once again, he's going to be at the center. He's kind of the example or the artist that I chose to navigate the different subjects that I want to touch on. Some of them being music as a whole, the music industry, Tupac himself, of course, and the spiritual connection that we as human beings appear to have with this music. And lastly, I want to give a big shout out to God, because He is the one that inspired me to make this video and talk about everything that I'm going to be talking about. So let's begin. Tupac Shakur. I discovered Tupac at the age of 15. For me, that was in 2011 because I was born in 96. Interestingly enough, that's the year in which the man unfortunately lost his life. And before 2011, I heard his name here and there, but it wasn't until then that I discovered his music or introduced myself to him and his music and everything that he was about, because no one did it for me. But if I remember well, it was probably I think I saw a documentary on the whole East Coast, West Coast beef of the 90s. And I think that's probably what made me curious about Tupac. I knew him by name, but I didn't really know any of his music or anything like that. So that's probably what pushed me in that direction. To this day, and it's 2026 now, and I'm about to be 30 years old. To this day, I can honestly say that Tupac is the artist, recording artist, musician rapper that had the most impact on me. I cannot think of any other artist that I had the sort of connection that I had with his music, Tupac's music. Tupac was exceptional. He was. See, and this is the interesting thing about him. You can't just describe him as an artist. That's not all that he was. He was much more than that. He was exceptional and intriguing as a human being. It's much more deeper than just art, apart from being very talented in writing and rapping, also poetry by the way. He was very smart, very deep, very articulate. He had the gift of gab. And he always had a message. He always left you with something to think about, whether that was through his music or his interviews. Because if you have any sort of relationship with his biggest fans, you will come to understand that they aren't just, most of them, like myself, weren't just fans of his music, but also his interviews, maybe his poetry as well, and his movies as well. So he was multifaceted, multi-talented. He was all over the place when it comes to the way in which his ability to communicate whatever was on his mind. I did warn you that I was going to be all over the place. So, having said all that I've said so far, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here and speak about music for a little while. I think it's important for where I want to go with this. Music is a mysterious thing, It's, as we all know, it's very powerful. And it's almost cliche to say this because, which one of us haven't heard that, music has the ability to change society, to help you get in the mood for whatever it is. We all know that about music, but see, I say it's mysterious in the sense that I don't think that any of us, or most of us, have the ability to fully define it, fully understand what music is. What is it that makes it what it is and gives it the ability to affect us in such a deep way? When it comes to the curious types, and when I say the curious types, I'm referring to the scientists, the engineers, the those types, people that like to study things and research things and really go deep into certain subjects to the point of becoming experts in them. You don't find many that are interested in studying music. Yes, we have music, engineers in the musical, field or whatever. But I mean, study it as a not study it in order to make it or refine it, but study it as as a scientist or maybe a biologist, studies a plant, for example, to kind of go into it and to understand what it is as a phenomenon. You don't find I haven't found any person that, is interested in doing that. And it's kind of strange, It's kind of strange because music is everywhere. And just imagine life without music. We can't live without it, especially today. It has shaped our society ever since the last century. I think this has been more and more the case. Today, and this is obviously the case amongst the youth, very much so the case amongst, with the youth. And it's been like this for a few generations now. When it comes to the way that they dress, the way that they speak even, walk, talk, and even think, if you want to go that far, a lot of that has to do with, the fact that they kind of adopt those things from artists. And those artists are musicians, rappers, singers, pop stars, whatever it is. It's music that shapes them, that kind of, has almost as much of an influence, if not more, on them in the developing stages of their lives. Even more so than their parents for some, if not most. So it's hard to understand why we kind of take music for granted. An artist, a musician, has a tremendous amount of power over our lives. And, I dare even say that the biggest pop stars, the biggest rappers, the biggest musicians, the most successful ones, the ones that, that have the biggest songs or all of that, they are even more powerful than we give them credit for. And see, I don't just say that to compliment them, but I say that to kind of warn you, the listener, to and this is where I want to go with this video a little bit. We need to be careful about things like music that we know is very powerful and has the level of influence that it has over us, but that we cannot understand yet, to a point that I believe we can, take it for granted as we do today. I know it sounds like, well, I did say I was going to be all over the place, but believe me, I'm going somewhere with this. What inspired me to make this video and talk about, obviously, as I said, Tupac is at the center of this video. He's not the entire topic. It's not everything that this video is about, but he's at the very center. And as I also said, this idea did not just come from me. I really believe that God, pushed me in this direction for me to speak about this. A few months passed. I, out of curiosity, because as I told you, Tupac in my teenage years was my favorite artist. And I used to listen to him every single day, religiously. This has changed, the older I got. I'm about to be 30, today I hardly listen to any of his music. But if I think back, he's definitely the one that if I had a favorite artist, rapper, musician, all of it, I would say that if I have had one in my life, it was Tupac. And a few months ago, out of curiosity, I decided to revisit some of his songs to because, I was asking myself, what was it about Tupac that that made me connect with him so strongly, that made me love his music and him so much, And I listened to, a few songs that I used to, especially the ones that I used to love. Some of them being, Trading War Stories, Hail Mary, So Many Tears. And let's just start, with those three. Especially So Many Tears and Hail Mary. And mind you, once again, this is after I hadn't listened to Tupac for a while. So this time, as I was listening, I wasn't just listening in the same way in which I used to listen to his music when I was, a big fan of him. A fanatic, really. I listened to, not to enjoy the music necessarily, but to study it, to understand it, to look deeply into it, and let it reveal whatever it is that is in it, so I can look into it and understand, what connected me with this man, And I must say that what I discovered was, I guess for lack of a better word, scary. It was really scary. Because, and yes, obviously, this was a different version of me, an older version of me. So I listened to it with a different ear. And, but here's the thing. As I was listening, it's almost as if I already knew that I was going to walk away with something that I did not, that I never discovered in this music before. For the simple fact that I was not listening to it as a fan, but out of curiosity. Because those very songs that I named, that I used to listen to a lot, although I listened to them probably 1,000 times or more in my life, it's almost as if at the very moment that I decided to really listen to it, not just enjoy the music, dance to it, rap to it, sing along to it, to listen. See, we say we listen to music, but we don't really. We don't. And that's what I mean also by the fact that we take music for granted. It's not just that we can't really define it. Yes, the dictionary has a definition for the word music, as it has a definition for every other word. But as a thing, what is music? What is it really? We don't know. It's almost incorrect to say that music is ancient, because we human beings have been around in this planet in this form that we are today, for how long? 300,000 years? Some people say a million years, whatever it is. But music existed way before. Birds sing as well. So it's mysterious in ways that we cannot fully grasp or understand. And the very fact that it has this deep effect on us. Listen, man. Music can change lives. It changes lives. There's a reason why people, almost lose their minds when it comes to their favorite artists. They worship them like people worship gods. And it was the case for me with Tupac. Let me say this. It is my personal belief, according to it is my personal belief that music stands between the realm that we have the ability to experience directly, meaning that this realm that we can feel, touch, feel, see, smell, and all of that, and the one that we cannot. To me, music stands in between those two realms. And that is why it's very powerful. I am African, and on the mother continent, on the African continent, there are many people, cultures, that use music to invoke spirits. And I say this so you can kind of understand what I mean by it stands right between this realm that we have the ability to experience directly and the next one, or the invisible one, the one in which spirits, for example, exist in. It's not something to play with. Yes, you can, as we do, enjoy music as you wish, that is your right. There is no laws against that. And I'm not, insinuating or, trying to suggest that we should have laws against that. No, I'm just saying that when it comes to music, in my opinion, we are definitely dealing with something that we don't fully understand. And as a result of that, there are dangers that we're not aware of when it comes to music. Going back to Tupac and me saying that, some of the things that I discovered in the songs that I listened to, that I used to enjoy very much when I was younger, were scary to me. First of all, I want to start with Hail Mary. It's hard, almost hard for me to fully describe how dark the music, and when I say the music, I don't just mean the sound of it or the lyrics, because once again, to me, music is much more than that. There's a reason why music has the ability to change the atmosphere of an entire room. Music can change your mood instantly. Instantly. If you were angry, music can help you regulate your mood. It can help you get into a different state of mind. There's a reason why people go to the gym and they want to put on some music to get in the mood to do what they need to do. You know, people use music to get in the mood to go to work, for so many different things. And that tells you that it's spiritual. It's much more powerful than mere words. Or maybe it's, there are situations in which that's not necessarily the case, but you see what I'm trying to say. As I was listening to the song, the entire atmosphere of my room changed instantly. I felt it. The Hail Mary song. It's almost like Tupac, through that song, Hail Mary, brought me into a different world instantly. And after I listened to the song, I just like I just did now, I probably even laughed. Because I was like, wow. All of this stuff is in the music. And, I actually put in my notes some of the words that he says, in the intro of the song Hail Mary. Which, kind of... It kind of made me angry because I was like, we really play with these guys, It's okay. Let me get into it. Here it is. This is how the intro to the song Hail Mary, starts. Machiavellian this, Illuminati, all through your body. The blows like a 12-gauge shotty. Feel me? Come with me. Hail Mary, nigga, run quick, see. And God said he should send his one begotten son to lead the wild into the ways of the man. Follow me. Eat my flesh, flesh of my flesh. See, here's the thing. As I just said, right? When I was younger, I used to listen to this track all the time. Every day. Most probably. Every single day of my life. I needed Tupac's music. I needed these songs to regulate my mood. To, whenever I was feeling down. Or, I struggled with depression for quite a while, in my life. And especially my teenage years. And Tupac was always there for me to get me right. And this is one of the songs that I used to put on. Which means that I used to say these words that I just recited to you all the time. But I never knew it's not even that I never knew what they meant. And it's not just that I didn't care. The problem was that whatever this music was something totally different than I thought that it is to me. Whatever this music is something totally different. When it comes to these lyrics in the intro of this song, Hail Mary, and I'm not going to tell you, really. It's my choice. I'm not going to tell you what I think he's saying. I want you to do that research. What is Tupac saying in that intro of the song Hail Mary? And that's why, when I heard that, once again, going back to listen to these songs, I was like, wait, what? This was there the whole time. You know, when you listen to music to enjoy it, and here I'm referring to your favorite songs, your favorite artists, you are not in your right state of mind. You are not yourself fully. Music is so powerful that in the English language, when we say that we play music, unless you're an artist and actually, is making music, it's probably different. But I'm saying when you're putting on a song, when people say, play that song, to me, that's not the way in which we should say it. That's incorrect. You don't play anything when it comes to music. The music plays you. It's not like sports, in which, when it comes to basketball, and soccer, for example, you're the one making things happen. You use the ball to dribble or whatever in order to score a goal, and you're trying to figure out, how to make that happen. Yes, in that case, you are playing the sport. When it comes to music, you're not playing anything. The music is the boss. The music takes the lead. You follow it wherever it leads you. And in most cases, and when I say most cases, I'm referring to the songs that we actually enjoy, the artists that we love and worship. In most cases, it leads us to places that we have no idea about, that we don't understand at all, that we don't know. And you know what's so interesting? And this is just my belief again. And let me just say, during the course of this video, obviously, at this point, you should understand that I am speaking about my beliefs. You obviously will have probably, you will either agree or disagree. And that's fine. I'm not like that. So, just to come back. You can be led to places that you have no idea you're being led to when it comes to this music. Because when we enjoy music, and I'm saying, in that very state where we are dancing, singing along, and it's even more powerful, obviously, if you are under the influence of something else like weed or alcohol. Even without that, when you're really into the music and, it's making you, when you dance and sing along to the music and stuff, you are agreeing with the music. You have a connection with that music. You are trying to reproduce whatever it is that, or represent whatever it is that music is communicating to you, not because it's some sort of intellectual exercise, but because you have been, you have been connected to it in those moments in ways that that most of us don't know or understand. And to me, that's a spiritual connection. And many artists, in my opinion, know that. And I don't say they know that necessarily, in the sense that they make the music, well, hear me well. Most signed artists, most artists in the music industry know that and make the music with that in mind. In fact, that is the result that they are trying to get. That is the effect that they are trying to have with the audience, which sounds self-evident because obviously if you're an artist, you want to be successful. But let's be careful with this. It is my opinion, you know, especially after, because, after listening to Tupac's music, going back to listen to Tupac's music, it made me a bit more curious about, the music industry as a whole and all of that. And I've come to the conclusion that, and obviously this is something that many other people have said, maybe in different ways, but, when an artist signs a record contract in that music industry, they become a totally different entity, human being, than they were before. Because now they serve a different purpose. They are themselves introduced to a new world. A world that many of us believe exists, that we just hear in conspiracy theories here and there. But in their own way, they always communicate to you through their music that they are not like you and me, that they are different type of entity. And when I say entity, yes, obviously, maybe a human being, and then in his own way is obviously an entity. But listen, there are, in that intro that Tupac, in the Hail Mary song, that Tupac, said or rapped or sung in the Hail Mary song, is obviously coded language. Something that, well, I'm not even gonna, it's obviously coded language. But the thing is, there's coded language everywhere when it comes to that music industry and the artists in that music industry. They speak, like Tupac, for example, obviously he was rapping and speaking in English, but also in a different language that represents whatever it is that they do in that industry. And it's always communicated through the music for us to consume it. But the thing is that we don't understand what we are consuming. Only they know. And I say this to kind of come back to what I was saying before. We don't know music. We don't understand it. These guys probably know it better than us. In fact, it's their job. But they don't know it better than us necessarily because they just want to be, they just want to make better music. No! They understand the spiritual part. And that's how they are able to create the sort of music that makes us worship them. Listen, when you love a certain song, when you love the music that you love so much, and when you are in those moments in which you're listening to it, you are not fully yourself. You have been taken. You have been, I can't even say that you have been bewitched. You are not in your right state of mind. You are so seduced by that music, by that song, that in those moments you worship it and the artist that makes it. Whether you believe in these spiritual things or not, that is what you do. You cannot help it in those moments. And that's where the danger starts. When you see And I have had the chance to experience this in my life, only a few times. A celebrity would walk down the street, maybe, and people that usually are, level-headed, normal people, intelligent, smart people, civilized individuals, instantly turn into animals by just seeing an artist that they have this sort of connection to through music. They start screaming, they start acting like children, or probably even worse than children. They cannot control themselves anymore because this person is now here. To me, that's not a normal or natural reaction. That's the reaction that someone has over somebody else when they have been bewitched. And yes, and see, I mean that word literally. It's not a figure of speech. We are bewitched by these artists through that music. And they say it themselves in the songs often, if we are curious, serious enough to listen to it and don't just take this music for granted, thinking that it's just something that is created just for us to enjoy. No, it's much more than that. Music is too powerful to just serve that purpose. Enjoyment? Are you crazy? The music industry, obviously, and this is not, I'm not the first person to say it. The music industry obviously has an agenda. You think they sign these artists, shape these artists, and make them wear all these clothes, say all these things? Because, and this is another thing, those artists definitely are not in control. Once you sign that record contract, you are not in control of your life anymore. They own you. You serve the purpose that they give you over there. That's what it means to sign the contract. You are introduced to that world. You are one of them now. So when we listen to these artists that we love so much, we need to know and understand that we are dealing with entities, and when I say entities, I'm referring to these artists that we don't fully understand. When it comes to a recording artist, and as I said, Tupac is at the center of this topic, so I'm going to be using him as an example because he, for many years, was my favorite artist. But this also applies to many other artists. When it comes to the things that we saw on TV, in the music videos, some in the songs as well, but just the whole presentation around the artist. This was what, for the most part, this is not something that, these were not things that this very artist or these very artists thought up. There's an entire team, an entire squad, an entire industry, especially if they are very successful, that creates all these things that we see when it comes to these artists when they are presented to us. It's not the work of one brain. It's been thought out by a lot of people in many different, many different fields, positions in that industry to make you fall in love with this artist. Obviously, when you're a fan of Tupac, you almost have to know who Biggie Smalls was, because the two are connected and probably connected forever now, especially after their beef and the result that brought into their lives. In fact, many believe, and this is probably the case, that this beef that they had was the very reason why both of them lost their lives. In some extent, to some extent, especially when it comes to Biggie Smalls. Biggie Smalls' first album was called Ready to Die, and his last album was called Life After Death. That's Biggie Smalls, okay? And when it comes to Tupac, when I listen to and understand that this was the case for many rappers in the 90s and probably, today as well, but I don't think it's there for the reasons that we think that it's there for. And let me say what I'm actually talking about. Once again, Biggie Smalls' first album was called Ready to Die, and the last one was called Life After Death. Tupac, during his career, spoke a lot about death, almost religiously. It's one of the subjects that I can say was probably in the top 3 of his of the things that he spoke about in his music as a whole, in general, or top 5. Definitely amongst the top ones. And in his very last album, or the one that came just after he died, which was called the Machiavelli 7 Days Theory, he is, there's a depiction of him on the album cover as being crucified like Jesus was, on a cross. And and when I say that, these artists are different entities, once they sign that record contract, and the fact that they speak in symbolic language. Obviously, this language is in the form of words, but it's also represented through images as well. But here's the thing, once again, because I know I'm saying a lot of things that probably don't make sense, but to me it makes sense, but I'm going to try to explain what I'm saying, right? As I was saying, when it comes to these artists, once they sign the record contract and they are a different entity now, they have a team now, an entire industry, an entire group of people that create the image of this artist so they can be presented to us in a way that would seduce us, I suppose, to some extent, or, make us fall in love with them, so on and so forth. But there's also a different job that this industry or this world does also. I don't know what it is. I'm not part of that world. But I know that for some reason, they always have to speak in symbolic language as well. Through the music, through the images, they will always show you that they live in two worlds. Why is Biggie Smalls' first album called Ready to Die? And the last one, just before he died, Life After Death? Why? And here, once again, I'm only speaking about things that I believe personally. When it comes to Biggie Smalls, the first album was called Ready to Die because that was the price that he paid in order to reach the level of influence that he wanted to reach in the music industry, in music, in rap, was that, he had to die. He had to die. That was the price for that level of success, that level of respect amongst his rapping, peers or whatever. He had to die. It's not named that for whatever reason was given to us. And obviously, after he died, the album Life After Death came out. And clearly they're showing you that this is not by chance. Biggie Smalls, just before dying, and I think it's even the on the cover of that very album, it's him. He made an entire photo shoot by a hearse in a cemetery. Life After Death. When you bought that album, well, I wasn't, I was born, but I was just a baby by then. But for the people that bought that album, they bought it after his death. Life After Death. Life probably in the sense that now that he died and paid the price, he was going to reach a whole different height. And this was the case for Tupac as well. After those two gentlemen, those two young men died, they reached a whole different level of success, a whole different level of fame, of respect. All of a sudden, and almost immediately, they were top 3 in everybody's list when it comes to being rappers. And this seems to be the case for a lot of the rappers that, today is maybe it's kind of different. But this entire wave seems to have begun with Tupac and Biggie. That once, at least in rap music, that as soon as these guys die, all of a sudden they're the greatest ever. No, and see, it's not just as many people believe, I suppose, and you can't really blame them. It's not just this thing that, yes, naturally, when somebody dies, you feel some level of empathy. You feel kind of sad, and this obviously pushes you to react to them in a different way, as you would if they were alive. This is, most of us, or many of us believe that that's, kind of what is going on when we have this sort of reaction when it comes to these artists after their demise, or after their deaths. No. This is something that begins in that world that I'm speaking about. That world that creates this music that we consume almost mindlessly, when there's all these things in the music. I listened, and thankfully, I once again put it in my notes as well. Another song of Tupac that was very interesting to me when I went back and listened to it, to the music and his lyrics as well, was So Many Tears. And there's, I think there's about 2 verses from that song that I recorded here, that I put on in my notes, that I want to recite to you. And once again, I'm not going to go in and tell you what he's saying, because it's not like I was in his head and I know exactly, but I feel like I know where he's going with it. But I'm not just going to tell you. I want you to do that research as well, so you can discover these things for yourself. It's too easy for somebody to just tell you, he said this is what this means. No, you go do the research as well. All right. So Many Tears, verse 2. Now, okay, so it begins here. Now that I'm struggling in this business, by any means, label me greedy, getting green, but seldom seen, and F the world because I'm cursed. I'm having visions of leaving here in a hearse. God, can you feel me? Take me away from all the pressure and all the pain. Show me some happiness again. I'm going blind. I spend my time in the cell and living well. I know my destiny is hell. Where did I fail? My life is in denial, and when I die, baptized in eternal fire, I'll shed so many tears. That's verse 2. And so many things in there. It's very interesting. Let's get to verse 3. I'm suicidal, so don't stand near me. My every move is a calculated step to bring me closer to embrace an early death. Now there's nothing left. There was no mercy on the streets. I couldn't rest. I'm barely standing, about to go to pieces, screaming peace. And though my soul was deleted, I couldn't see it. Oh, I think I wrote this down wrong here. But something that my mind, or had my mind full of demons trying to break free. They planted seeds and they hatched, sparking the flame inside my brain like a match. Such a dirty game. No memories, just a misery, painting a picture of my enemies, killing me in my sleep. Will I survive till the morning to see the sun? Please, Lord, forgive me for my sins, 'cause here I come. Listen. Understand that, this whole business of one selling his soul or her soul is a conspiracy theory for many of us. And it's just that. There's no truth to it. It's just pretty much insanity for us to believe that such a thing exists. Well, here's Tupac saying it. Is he just exaggerating or it's just a figure of speech? What is he saying there in those two verses? And these two songs, So Many Tears and Hail Mary, were two of his most successful songs. The one that to this day, if you come across fans of Tupac, they are fans of those songs as well. For the most part, most of them. And we consume all of these things in the music. We repeat these words. But yet we don't even know what they mean or what inspired them. Where do they come from? Why the artist says these things. Where is he taking us with this? Tupac and Biggie sacrificed themselves for the success that they had during their lives, but also to a great extent after their lives. Because there's a pretty big difference between the alive Tupac and Biggie and the dead Tupac and Biggie. There's a price to be paid in that industry for that level of influence, for that level of godliness, because they refer to them also as gods now. which shouldn't be a surprise because they are worshipped. Just as I worship Tupac myself. Let's be careful, with this music. What we see on the surface is not all that there is. There's a lot more in them, in there, sorry. But the thing is that they don't hide everything, though. And that's what is also interesting about, that industry. They reveal a lot of things that you would think that if they were involved in such, in these practices, that, they would hide to some extent. But it's out there. I was watching the Diddy doc, the new one. I forgot the name of it, but the very last one that came out, and in the part in which Little Rod was speaking about his experiences in the whole while he was working on the Love album with Diddy, and he was saying that at some point in the process of him, making the album with Diddy came to him showing him a video of two men, having sex, telling Little Rod that this was what he had to do. That this was what he had to do to get into the music industry, as these other artists are, and become successful. Or at least he said something along those lines. But ever since that documentary came out, no one even spoke about that. It's right there. It's right there. And this is just one of the practices. What are you going to tell me? That was a figure of speech as well? That Diddy was just saying this because he just wanted to take advantage of Little Rod sexually? And maybe I can understand someone, coming to that conclusion. But I mean, come on now. How many artists has Diddy brought into the music industry? And when I say artists, I mean the successful ones. Usher, Justin Bieber, Mary J. Blige, Biggie Smalls. The list goes on and on. And if it's not for the ones that he brought into the music industry, the ones at least that he shaped or helped reach a certain height in the music industry, they all did these things with Diddy. And it's not for just sexual, gratification or pleasure. This is what you have to do to get introduced to that world. Or at least it's one of the things that you have to do to get introduced to that world. You can't be successful over there without doing what they do, whatever it is. It's not, see, they don't live in the same world as, yes, they live in this world as well, but they also have a different world that they belong to now, after they have signed that record contract and have done whatever it is that they had to do to become who they are. I don't know who Diddy inherited this from, but he definitely inherited this from somebody. But all these things that Diddy was doing, he wasn't just doing it because he's crazy, because he's sexually, just a sexual beast. It was his job to do it. Because that's how you bring these artists into that world. That's how they become successful. That's his job. In that way, he was what do you call it, a gatekeeper, whatever the word is, for the person in that industry that has that responsibility to make sure that whatever culture they have over there, where these acts have to be practiced, continues. Diddy learned these things from somebody in that industry. He didn't bring it in. That industry is older than Diddy has been alive. He learned it from somebody else. And after Diddy, someone else is going to do it, because that's how that industry functions. They don't just do these things for pleasure, man. And I know for a fact that when things reach that level, where you have to do these sort of acts in order to be introduced to that industry, it means that these guys also deal with spiritual entities. They have to make sacrifices to these entities, to whatever it is that they worship or interact with or collaborate with spiritually over there, in order to create the sort of music that they create and have this level of success that they have. Because for them to have the level of success that they have to bewitch you and me, so that we can buy their records, so that we can become fans of these guys, so that when they walk on the streets, we lose our minds for them. I was also, I just remember just growing up, right? And, sometimes even, because this was mostly, my parents' generation, people from that generation would always bring up, Michael Jackson and the effect that he would have on his fans or people that came to the concerts to watch him, perform. And there's obviously footage of these concerts and stuff, and you will see people fainting in the in the concerts. And people to this day, they say, oh, they're fainting because they couldn't believe that Michael was there before them, because that was their first time seeing Michael Jackson and, in all his glory and whatever. No, man. I mean, how can we be this stupid? Sorry for using that word. That is stupidity. You don't faint because you just see someone. That's unnatural. Michael was doing something to these people. And that's what happens when you worship someone and you don't understand what you're worshiping or who you're worshiping. That's witchcraft, man. That's witchcraft or magic, whatever you call it. Whatever these artists are involved in order to have that level of power that they have over us. And I don't say this as somebody who doesn't know what it is. Just like I'm telling you, I was a big fan of Tupac Shakur. I used to worship him, man. If Tupac was alive and in that moment or at that time in my life and I saw him on the street or whatever it is, what do you think my reaction would have been? It would have been something akin, maybe not to that full extent, but something akin to these people, fainting in the concerts, screaming, losing their minds. There's nothing wrong, because maybe you misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with respecting someone. There's nothing wrong with loving someone. There's nothing wrong with, thinking that somebody is great. But when you worship someone, when you idolize someone, when you're a fanatic of somebody, that's when you have crossed the line. And here's the thing about it. It's not necessarily your fault. because you're not in control. When you reach that point, you're not in control anymore. You have been had. You have been bewitched. You're out of control. You're out of your mind. You have lost yourself when it comes to this artist or their music or whatever it is that you love consuming, that they produce. And you think having that sort of reaction on you, or having the ability to cause that sort of reaction in you, doesn't cost these artists something? They have to give up things. They have to sacrifice things. That's how you get into the music business. Listen, that Love album, right? And I didn't listen to it. I'm not, a fan of Diddy like that. But I surmise, that in that album, a subject that is definitely on there is lust. Lustful. A lot of the lyrics or a lot of the topics or a lot of the things that most of those songs or many of them were about is lustful songs. Listen, if you want to make great music about sex, about lust, about all these things, you have to be well acquainted with the spirit of lust. And when it comes to these guys, I don't believe that it's just, figurative language. It's literal. These guys deal with spirits. When you play those songs, and in the entire atmosphere of your car or your room or wherever it is that song is being played changes. Why does it change? It's because those spirits are there. The spirits that artist collaborated with in order to create that music are released in that environment, in that place, in that room, in that car. They are there with you as you play that song. And they have more power and more influence when you agree with the music, when you dance to it, when you repeat the words, when you let it lead you to the places that it leads you. As I said, and I probably said this just in passing, right? That as a teenager, I dealt a lot with depression. And now that I look back, I obviously have to look at the songs that I used to listen to during that time in my life. And as I told you, Tupac was my favorite artist during that time. And I don't think that even for the biggest fans of Tupac, they can deny the fact that Tupac, in many of his songs, wrote, and even for some of the lyrics that I just recited, wrote his lyrics as somebody who was depressed. This is probably not something that he displayed necessarily, in the open, but definitely, through his lyrics, you can definitely see that some of the things that he would say came from somebody who dealt a lot with depression. Before I started listening to Tupac, and I'm telling you this, I'm not exaggerating in the very least. Before I started listening to Tupac, I was not a depressed person. I was not. I dealt with sadness here and there, but I didn't deal with depression like that. That started when I started listening to Tupac's music. at age 15. A lot more comes with this music that we think. Music is spiritual, y'all. I apologize for sounding like I'm angry or screaming, but to some extent I am. There's a lot of passion in me as I say this. And this is just the part one of this subject. Tupac. Once again, I'm not just speaking about Tupac. I'm using Tupac as an example because he was my favorite artist. But this is pretty much some of the things that I want to touch on. And I'm going to stop here. This is going to be the first part of this series that I'm going to be doing on music and things of that sort, because I think it's important. We need to be careful, and the more as the years go by, the situation seems to be getting worse and worse, because this music industry seems to have as one of its goals our destruction. Whether that's mental, whether that's emotional, whether that's spiritual. And I'm sorry, but I am going to attack hip-hop music and R&B music in this regard. Ever since hip-hop became pop music, or even slightly before that, even beginning in the 90s, when Tupac and those guys came around, if you look at the way that we started dressing, that we started talking, that we started thinking, walking, it's been getting worse and worse when it comes to the youth. And it's not even the youth, because the youth of that time now are full-grown adults. And what was their legacy? What did they teach the next generation? It couldn't have been anything good, because this generation is worse than the last. And what do you think the next one is going to be? It's going to get worse and worse. The drugs are getting stronger. The alcohol consumption is it's starting earlier now. The music is more demonic, to the point that now, I mean, at least in Tupac's time, they used to hide these things to some extent. And when I say hide, it was very coded. But now, it's more and more. They're revealing more and more things to let you know that this is what they are about. And we are so bewitched. The level of power that they have reached now is a lot more stronger. They are a lot more powerful today than they were, 30 years ago or 20 years ago. Because now they can literally show you that they are half demon and half human being, and tell you to your face in a way to laugh at you and say, I have bewitched you to the point that I can tell you to your face that I am here to destroy you, and you can't do anything about it. All you can do is dance to my music. All you can do is worship me. That's how great I've become. That's really how great the music industry has become when it comes to witchcraft, magic. Music is not just something that's there for us to enjoy. Music is spiritual, man. Let's be careful about that. at some point, and I'm not really a fan of drill music. It's not that came along when I was probably in my early 20s, and even though I'm just 30 now, but I was really much more of a fan of the hip hop. The 90s hip hop, boom bap, much more lyrical and all of that. Drill music came, later on, but once again, after I really kind of stopped listening to hip hop like that, and I came just out of curiosity, started to listen to some of these to these tracks. The one that I really, really dislike, or one of the genres, within hip hop or subgenres that I really disliked was drill music, because that one, man, it's almost the reaction that I have to it in my spirit is violent. It's that dark. It's that dark. And you can't be surprised that these songs are the soundtracks for death in the inner cities, in the hood. These are the songs, these are the soundtracks to drive-by shootings, to violence on the streets, to people going out and robbing stores and stuff. To the point that when it comes to the music videos, these guys dress as robbers, as killers. And obviously they say it in the music as well. But always look out for the successful ones. The ones that influence these other guys to dress and talk and walk like they display on the screen or on the internet or on social media or whatever it is today. When it comes to the youth, they don't just wake up one day and decide to dress a certain way. Especially today, people are sheep today. People always want to fit in. This starts at the top. And when I say at the top, it's these artists, these guys that are very influential, these guys that are very successful, that have all the cars and all these other things that the music industry uses for you to be seduced by those guys and want to be like those guys and therefore replicate everything that they do. It starts with them. And they have definitely tapped into spiritual things in order to have this sort of reaction. This sort of influence over the public. I know that I said, in the beginning of this video that I was going to be talking about Tupac and but luckily I also said that I was going to be all over the place, and well, that's what happened. But I think so far I have said, even though I have a lot more to say, but I'm going to be keeping those things for the next videos that I'm going to make on these topics. I'm going to be keeping those for later on and later episodes. So, stay tuned for those if you want to keep listening to me ranting or whatever. But once again, I'm not doing this because I just want to do this. It's something that I really feel like God has and has had really to push me again and again to speak about and release to the world. I personally don't know why. It may sound, obvious that, it's to help, other people out there that are probably about to make some of the mistakes that I have made myself in the past when it came to the music. But it's his plan, really. It's about him and whatever he wants to do. So I want to end this video by thanking God for allowing me to record this this video and saying all the things that I said, many of which I believe was inspired by him as well, and for him to keep on doing whatever it is that he needs to do through me, through this video, and for this video to have the effect that it needs to have on whoever it is that will listen to it. We have reached an age where many of the things that we see are not as they seem on the surface. We need to be, and people have become, and this is just when it comes to everybody, really, businesses, the way that things are advertised, presented to us. It's always, and obviously, when it comes to advertisement in general, there's always a level of trickery in it. But with the use of AI and all these different technologies that are being released today, it's going to become more and more difficult for us to have the ability to decipher between reality and what is fake. And once that really comes in full effect in our world, as it's about to, many of us are going to fall for a lot of things that is going to destroy us. So it's probably a time right now where the sort of message that I'm delivering is much more needed now than it was in the past, and will be even much more needed in the future. And once again, this is bigger than me. I'm not doing this for me. Honestly, I'm not even doing it for you. I'm just trying to be obedient here.